Welcome to our official announcement for Jaya One with respect to how we are responding to COVID-19. This broadcast is specifically put together to help us deal and manage ourselves as we reopen from the 13th of May onwards. There has been many practices, measures that we have put in place over the past 2 months. We have also received a lot of feedbacks, some positive, some negative. And we hope to address everyone, our communities of Jaya One, with respect to what we have done and what we will continue to do. I'd like to start by putting in place that we feel through a video that this would be easier for me to share with everyone with respect to what measures we will be taking, but also to allow us the chance to explain some of the measures that we've also taken so that we hope the communities of Jaya One will understand the rationale behind what we do. Throughout, since the first MCO, we have actually been designing what we call as movement control procedure. We call it MCP, which essentially outlines how we can help move people around Jaya One safely from point A to point B. We've been designing this through experiences, through real-time learning, understanding what actually is happening, what we have to confront with, through feedbacks, also learning through watching the news, watching experts in other countries, what they are doing. And I must say that the MCP at this point in time is an evolving process. Whatever we put in place is not permanent, and it will continue to evolve as we learn new things. So movement control procedure, or as we would like to call MCP, essentially is designed to just make sure that we have a particular process to move people from point A to point B, and done so in a very orderly and safe manner. In order for us to put MCP in place, we're gonna have to look at several practices. The first thing is the lift designations and people accessing from the car park basements, using these lifts to actually move through and into Jaya One. We also have to look at the access to the school and the square. We have to look at the COVID-19 response in terms of coordination center. We have to set up a certain response center in order for us to deal with the daily feedbacks and also allow us to stay in touch with on-ground activities of what they're happening in as real time as possible. We'll look at sanitization practices. This is what we must do. And we will set up a system in which for us to receive feedbacks efficiently. And we also have to look at parcel deliveries as well. Look at how we deliver parcels in and around Jaya One. We also have to look at examine PPE, the protective equipment, in terms of what needs to be issued to our frontline staffs, and also what public facilities will be closed during this MCP. Now, there are almost 9 items that we have taken measures to lay down very detailed steps, and they are all using the principles of social distancing. The idea is segregations and redesignation of access to particular users will allow us to basically, in a very orderly way, sort of manage queues, manage accesses so that they don't overwhelm the resources and overwhelms the facilities. By way of allowing overwhelming means we're going to see uncontrollable queues, which may lead into fights, which may lead into distress and risk of infections. We can pull you a clip. This is a picture of a clinic in Jaya One that took place today on the 8th of May. where clearly foreign workers were coming to this clinic to get themselves checked out, obviously for some construction workers. And this is a perfect image of when there is no process in place to move people in an orderly and safe way. Queues, or not queues, people will take measures in their own hands. And as you can see from this visual, it's very clear that something needs to be done. This is what we are trying to avoid at all times throughout when we reopen back Jaya One. The first thing first is we need to outline our mode of communication. For everyone in Jaya One to stay in touch with the management, especially in times like these, where I believe there are some people who need answers or have questions, feedbacks, including criticism they wish to make. Staying in touch with us and for you to communicate with us and for us to respond back is challenging when we don't outline a particular channel of communication. So the first thing first is we like to put out there is how do we stay in touch? How do we communicate between the management and the communities of Jaya One? So we would like to outline our preferred mode of communication. From May 13 onwards, we're going to put in place a 7-day cycle in which we will outline through every 7 days how we would receive feedbacks, how we would respond, and how we would see any amendments or modification to any of the processes we put in place will change. Every 7-day cycle, we will be, with the feedbacks we receive, we will be amending or modifying any of the processes to improve, and we will broadcast any of such changes or any updates with regards to our response on Sunday of every week. Okay? And then by the Monday after our broadcast, you will see the changes reflected physically on site. Okay? Notices will then follow, which will be made available on our website. So that means as far as communication is concerned, all right, email us or call us through customer service and give us all the feedbacks through email or phone calls to customer service. You may do so from Monday to Thursday, okay? And then once the feedbacks, we've collected all feedbacks, every Thursday evening, the team will reconvene to meet and review all the feedbacks. And we will, through the team, we will examine all the feedbacks. We will also put in our ideas and see what improvements we can make. Whatever changes we make, by Sunday, we will broadcast the changes and updates. And by Monday, the following week, the changes will be in place. That's what we mean by the 7-day cycle. All updates and notices and video broadcasts will be made available on our website. And you will see on the screen what will be the websites that you can click yourself to. We will be publicizing the website on Live so that you can access this website in order to see what are the latest updates. But as I said before, the updates will be done on the 7-day cycle. Every Sunday you will see updates, written notices, and video broadcast. Any emergency broadcast, for example, if it's whether there might be an infection or any form of emergencies that we need to broadcast, we will be using our social media for that. So we won't be updating on our website, we'll be using our social media to announce any emergencies. And this we will announce at the Jaya One's Facebook and all the relevant Facebook within the Jaya One community that will be involved, the residents' Facebook, Jaya One's Facebook, the school and the square's Facebook. So again, for emergencies, we'll be using social media, Facebook, to announce. So as much as I feel for some of the frustrations that the residents or communities may have to deal with in some of the measures that we put in place, we have to maintain a system or systematic way of working so that we're able to handle the amount and process amount of information that is coming in. So please forgive us if our response may not be as fast as you would like. For MCP, as I mentioned, we are really planning to use the principle of social distancing in order to put in place a safe measure for us to move people around. Lifts are the main transportation from the basement car park to wherever everyone needs to go. So obviously, the first thing we need to do is review how lifts are being used. As of now, the way it works is this. For the commercial side of Jaya One, we talk about the shop offices in phase 1 and also the new phase where the school is. Access from the basement car park will be very much restricted. Essentially, we see people who are parking in the basement, they will need to use the lifts in block A, B, C, D, and H to access to level G. Okay? Now, for anyone that needs to get to block J, you need to then move from once you're in level G, move towards block J, where we have the lift lobby J1 and J2, where for the time being, we reserve those lifts to transport people to 129 offices only. Okay? So J1 and J2 presently are reserved to transport people to 129 office from level G to level 7 only. Okay? For access down, for access down from level 7 to level G, the lifts by the POP area will be reserved for those access down. The residents, for the time being, we've allocated lift number 11, which is behind street tie. So that is an express lift taking from level 8 to level G. As I say, for J1 and J2, lift lobby J1 and J2, which typically takes you from basement car park to level 7 of the 129 office, has now been temporarily stopped. That means those lifts only travel from level G to level 7. Okay? What we are most concerned is to make sure that those lifts are not overwhelmed by queue. So we've already put in place a queue management system to process people going and traveling into the 129 office. Anyone who wishes to access the car park to level G of the J1 and J2 will no longer be able to do so. They need to use the lifts at block A, B, C, D, and H. Okay? We figured that the shop offices has enough lifts to basically transport enough people to go up to level G. And then they will transit from level G to level 7 at the block J129 office. That means people who are working in block A, B, C, D, you can move directly from the basement car park to your office units. Now I'm going to move on to some of the questions that has been brought to us, and then I'm going to attempt to answer each question one by one. Well, first of all, we have received many feedbacks, and I can perfectly understand the inconvenience as far as residents are concerned, how they feel the lifts are suddenly restricted to only one lift going down to level G from level 8. I hope that the residents will understand that this is, at this point in time, is still an experimentation. It is not meant to be permanent, but we're experimenting to see how things will be like starting from May 13 onwards. Our team will be on ground to measure the waiting times at lift J1 and J2. At this point in time, we don't know what works and what doesn't work. What we do know is to make sure the segregation is done carefully and selectively so that we can preempt any unnecessary chaos. As for the inconvenience, I can only express to the residents to be patient with us, give us time to put these things in place so that we can measure the outcome. What we have seen in lift 11 is that the lift, certainly based on lift 11, is not overwhelmed at this point in time. Reports coming from my security and my COVID-19 response team is that there is no overwhelming queues for lift 11 for people traveling from level 8 to level G. This tells us that the one lift is manageable at this point in time for the residents. Okay? Of course, things may change, but from what we can see so far, it is manageable. So as far as the inconvenience is concerned, we regret that you have to go through this, but again, we need the time to actually go through the process to see what works and what doesn't work. Are there any recommendations we can make to improve this? Not at this point in time. One feedback we did receive was that some residents were not happy that these lifts were being used to transport waste disposal. That means about rubbish, that the cleaners were using these lifts to move rubbish. What we have done is we have spoken to a housekeeping department, and they basically decided that we'll no longer use this lift 11, to transport rubbish anymore. Okay, so we have informed the housekeeping department to clean the lifts properly, and so that this lift will be reserved strictly for residents and occupants to use to travel from level 8 to level G. So this is the temporary thing that we put in place just to see and make sure that the lift is as comfortable as we can make it. Okay, for this question, we have received this feedback. Naturally, security concerns are also equally our big concerns as well. We recognize that the first test when we did that there was a security concern that anyone could walk through. Again, we have modified, which we'll put in place on Monday onwards, which will be May the 12th. To put in place, we're going to shift the security guard desk into the lift 11 area, nearer to the lift lobby 11, so that they will screen and test every occupant that will be coming out from that lift. Okay, so those are the sort of check. We basically relocate the checkpoints into lift lobby, nearer to the lift lobby 11 area, so that the checks and screenings can be done there, and that basically any residents passing through that particular area will need to produce a card in order for them to basically access in to that lobby. So again, we have basically what we did was we just relocated the security checkpoint, which we hope it will work and improve the situation. Okay, from level G to R2 levels, the fire staircases there, the staircase we do is a fire escape staircase, which won't be able to access into the level 8 of where the lobby is for lift 11 at the R2, simply because it's actually a one-way door system. So it's designed to run out into the fire staircase, but it's not designed for someone to go into the lobby. I've asked my men to actually double check that these doors are one-way systems, and I have been assured and confirmed that they are one-way door system. So in that sense, basically, you're sure that even if someone gets into the fire staircases, they can't actually access onto the residence level. The first thing I'd like to clarify first is that so far we have only but one committee member, which is the officially appointed management committee, which is appointed through the annual general meeting. And in that committee, basically, we've always assigned two committee seats for representing the residents. At this point in time, based on the 7 committee members we have one representing the residents, and he consequently is also the chairman of the Jaya One committee. We do have another committee. I wouldn't say they're a committee, we call it a dialogue, which before the MCO we would usually try to hold a dialogue session every 4 months with the residents with respect to, and anyone can basically turn up for these dialogue sessions to go through operational updates or feedbacks. And at this point in time, in order to answer that question, what we're saying is that there isn't an official committee representing the residents. That's one. 2, with respect to sort of present and ongoing in terms of discussions, we right now at this point in time, because we're still in the test phase on many of the things that we intend to do, we don't think at this point in time it would be productive for us to sit down to hold any dialogues with residents. For a very simple reason. The management, as far as what we do, sees a much bigger picture. That means we see a much more overall picture of Jaya One. We perfectly understand residents' would like to basically um, have as much of these accesses just like the way before MCO. We understand that. The best situation would be to remain things as they were. As of now and moving forward, because we're still in a learning phase, the only way for us to put practices or any measures in place is to actually put it out there and see what responses come back. In my experience being in property management, serving Jaya One for more than 10 years now, whatever we discuss in the room, there are always going to be theories. You never know how people will behave and respond to any measures that we put in place or any policies and procedures until we put it through. So in a sense, it may be a bit blunt and it may be insensitive for some in terms of seeing what we do, but we really do feel that our approach at this point in time is the only way to get measures out as quickly as possible. And that we rely on the participation and cooperation of the affected communities out there to keep giving us the feedback based on the communications of channels that I've outlined earlier, so that we can organize information, review feedbacks in a systematic way. And that way we take those feedbacks and we review that, and then as I said earlier, we broadcast on a Sunday, and by Monday we reflect those changes. So in other words, we have received a lot of feedback since 2 weeks of our MCP implementation. As you can see from our address this far, we've already addressed 2 of those concerns, and we've modified some of the measures. And this is the way that we prefer to work at this point in time. I know there may be residents or other communities that like to meet with us, to talk to us with regards to some of the suggestions that they may have. I urge for the time being to email those suggestions. I assure you, we look through every suggestions and feedbacks that comes through customer service. We take note of everything that has been brought to our attention, and then we will review our design. And then we will put those measures back into position if we think it is necessary, because we constantly have to see what we do, whether it is realistic or not. We have to measure outcomes. I recognize and understand some of the sentiments that communities, residents or occupants may feel towards some of the things we do. We recognize and we respect those sentiments. As I've said before, and I need to stress that in order for us to work productively and done so in an organized way, this is the only way we can move forward. Again, I will say at this point in time, because we're still in the test phase, we don't know anything yet. We don't know whether J1 and J2 will be overwhelmed once the office population comes back. And so for the time being, we like to stay put where we are. We like to put our MCP design into practice once the MCO is lifted, and we want to see how things get on. So rearranging the lifts, or at least one of the J1 or J2 to serve the residents, won't be something that we can do now. Will it be something that we can consider to change in the forthcoming future? Possibly. But where we are now is not something that we can do because we don't know anything yet. So please give us the time to put things into test and see how things work. Well, with respect to disinfecting, at this point in time, I would say that we're not able to provide any disinfecting help for any occupants in Jaya One, be it residents or the offices or the retail lots. There are a lot of mixed messages in terms of what government is outlining. We would like to, we dare not. So as far as disinfecting is concerned, we are able to commit to our own common areas, our own facilities which we have designated for our occupants and public to use. We've done as much as we can to redesignate and segregate usage so that our housekeeping and disinfectant team will be able to respond quicker to those areas that we feel certain type users will be using, which is precisely why it does actually, if you see what we've done is we have actually outlined even separation of parcels delivery or any deliveries. We want to segregate them, we want to minimize those movements by those type of users using those lifts and moving through our corridors. Regards to the lighting level at the car park basement, at this point in time, I must say, I think by now it is obvious that Jaya One is financially affected like anybody else in the whole world. Economically, I guess the world is bracing for a major recession. We at the moment are looking at what we can do to conserve energy spending. My whole team has been reviewing our budgets and our forecast spending from July to December 2020 this year. In fact, you will see one of the measures we will be putting in place is to see where we can cut costs. The idea is that if and where we're able to conserve cost, we hope to be able to take on those savings and pass it on to our owners and to our tenants in the form of a reduction in service charge. These are the things that we are looking into, and definitely in terms of lighting, energy conservation is going to be a big part of those cost-cutting measures, which I suppose at this point in time we have dimmed the lights in the car park quite substantially in order to see whether this would be something that we could use to save, to conserve some of those energy so that we can pass on those cost savings as part of our measures to brace for this recession. And we hope that if we're able to reduce those service charge, then the landlords will have a bit of that reduction, and then they can then pass it on to their tenants. And I think the only way we can sustain ourselves and survive through this recession is that we need to enter into a saving mode, and whatever we save, we got to pass it on to the next stakeholder, and then that stakeholder is to pass it on to the next stakeholder. And this is the only way that we are going to come out of this recession, because we will need at least 12 months to see this whole process through. I must ask the forgiveness of our public and any occupants that may be affected by this position that we're taking in terms of dimming the lights in the car park. We understand there's a security concerns. We are looking at that separately in terms of how we can improve the security presence to give that confidence back to our people, to our shoppers and people who are parking at the basement. We are working these balances out. Again, where we are today, we don't have all the answers, but we are working those things out. But what we do know is conserving the energy is one of the key things we must do. We've got to then further down the road from where we are now, we've got to start looking at the security aspect to see what we can do to improve the safety level. At this point in time, we won't be able to reinstate parcel deliveries to be put back in the condo level. Again, part of our social distancing measures is require us to segregate our lifts. And already there isn't enough lifts moving people who are working in 129 office and living in the condo. So allowing parcel deliveries to use the lifts would further congest those lifts. So we feel that in order to manage that congestion, number one, and number two, in order to reduce the risk of any infections being brought by these parcel deliveries, we feel it's best to keep to what we have put in place right now. Now, is this permanent? No. If we see the statistics of new cases being announced officially through the Ministry of Health, if we see those numbers continuously coming down, and if the government does start to give us the indication at any point in time that we are definitely out of the red zone and that we can be more relaxed, sure, we can re-examine reinstating certain things. But as of now, I think we are still very new. We are barely entering into sort of post-MCO period. I feel it would be prudent for us to be overly prepared and making sure that deliveries will not be using those lifts. And so we reserve lifts strictly for people who are working and living in Jaya One. So again, we apologize for that inconvenience, but we really feel that this is necessary for the time being. And further down the road, we are going to be setting up the counters in terms of the response system. We will ensure that more and more deliveries of parcels will be centralized to one area on the ground floor. So whatever we put in place for parcel delivery is not just for the condo, but the 129 offices and the retailers in the school. Parcel deliveries won't be allowed to move through these areas. They will move to a centralized area so that again we reduce the risk of parcel delivery people moving through these areas. Okay, this particular answer is actually only towards the tenants inside the school and the square. As you know, the shop lots, we don't, for any retailing business outside of the school and the square, we don't really exercise control over their opening hours and closing hours. For the school and the square, we've decided for the month of May that we will allow hours to be shorter, so much so that as long as it's within the, it is not more than the hours in terms of what the mall will be operating. Okay, so just for the month of May, tenants in the school and the square will be allowed to operate at a shorter hour. The information on our opening hours for the school and the square will be available on the notices that we will put up. So for our tenants in the school and square, please read those notices carefully, because we have put in all the new opening and operation hours there. So you can operate within those hours, shorter, within those permitted opening hours, as long as it's not longer than what the mall's opening hour is. Okay? Okay, in closing, I'd like to stress and put across to all the community occupants, residents, office workers, front lines, that this is not an easy time for all of us. Definitely not an easy time for you, for us, and so we must find a new way to coexist. We ourselves are reinventing and reorganizing our human resources to deal with new things that we've not been trained to do on a daily basis. There's no rule book or guides that are proven to be successful, which the government can give us. There's no handbook for what we are doing right now. Whatever measures we're putting in is through experiences, is through learning from other people, is through talking to other property managers as to what they're doing, and essentially just looking at Jaya One as our building, our layouts, our architectural, how our lifts and where those lifts are, how many escalators are. They are unique from one building to another. And so because our building is unique to any other buildings, some things that we see other buildings do may work in their place but may not necessarily work in our place. But at all times, we need to be realistic in terms of what works for us. But what is certain is this: we need time to experiment. We need time to try and see what works and what doesn't work. And it's because of this process, and it will create that inconvenience. It will create those stress levels, because one day you go into this lift, the next day you go there and you go, oh, this lift is not functioning anymore. So in order to manage those stress levels, we don't be changing things daily. Between me and my team, we've discussed, we realized that a 7-day cycle would be best and sufficient for us to work with. That means if we work on a 7-day cycle, as far as the shopper or an occupant is concerned, you see changes happening every 7 days. And our team will be given 7 days to put in place new changes, to receive feedbacks, to review feedbacks, and to respond accordingly. So again, I ask for our community's patience and understanding and forgiveness with respect to the things that we have to do. And trust me when I say that this is not something that we are trying to do to make things inconvenient for anybody. We just want to get through this as safely as possible with as little inconvenience as possible. So please support us, help us stay ahead of the curve. Thank you.